Thank you. Thank you so much, Jakub. Such an amazing words. And absolutely everything that you mentioned, we really hope we can provide that to all of the attendees. Guys, it's Wolf Summit 2023, here again in Wrocław. We are very happy to see you. Welcome. For many of you, it's a welcome back, and I don't think there's anything more meaningful for us as event organizers to know that people are coming back, that they are getting the value that we are offering them, and it really works for them. That's absolutely lovely. And every single time I see a familiar face, well, don't think that I'm stalking you. I'm just very happy to be here and see you again. All right, my name is Anna, and I'm going to be the MC during the whole conference, and speakers in the room, make sure you remember my face, because I'm going to be intimidating. I'm going to be chasing you, hunting you down to make sure we're keeping to our schedule and everything is going according to the plan. Most of you are already familiar with the way the event works. We have the main stage, we have the expo zone, the amazing chill-out zone on the rooftop, which is on the first floor. And remember, if you're going to have a little bit of fun, it's going to be after 4 p.m. because, well, we have the beer there and the amazing weather, so make sure you use it. Well, that's a great way to also kind of connect and network in a less formal way. And while I mentioned the word networking, obviously one of the most important things that we are trying to enforce here is for you to be able to network. So make sure you use Umbrella, our matching platform, to its fullest potential, because it really works, and it's really nice to see the results after the event, to see how many people have matched, how many new businesses maybe emerged from it. And we have one little addition, well, maybe not so little, to the conference this year, which is workshops. Most of you have already heard about it, since I was the one bombarding you with emails about trying and booking your place. There are still places available, so make sure you check the agenda, look around on the venue, because we have a lot of different informative points about the workshops. Make sure you book your place, and it's a great way to find a like-minded people, like network and connect in a very small group, as well as get some great insights. I will be casually leading the whole introduction speech to the end, and with that I want to thank our sponsors and partners, and make sure I'm not mispronouncing the names, I'm not missing any of them, I'm going to read them out, so stick with me for a minute here. So huge thank you to the, of course, City of Wrocław, first of all, and then Invest Hong Kong, Microsoft, Vienna Business Agency, City of Vienna, British Embassy Warsaw, IPCOM, SORA, MSIC, Startup Life, Miquido, Oric, SpinLab, Personit, Polish-Ukrainian Startup Bridge, ISC Corporate Accelerator, PureTech Digital, ERAV, which is Wrocław Agglomeration Development Agency, Startup Wrocław, Antler, Talenti, We Make Future, Look AI Ventures, Wielka Reklama, and many more. And of course, huge thanks to the whole Wolf Summit team. The TUTEC team, thank you so much for always sticking here with us and always supporting us. It's always great. And that would lead me to the great introduction, as I was saying and kind of enforcing that the whole agenda will be great. And I'm not really able to imagine anyone else but Andrew Rubel here, who is the founding partner at Imagine Europe, to be none other than him, who's going to be the first speaker of our event. Andrew, welcome on the stage.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes, my name is Andrew Robel. I am the founding partner of an organization which is called Emerging Europe. It's based in London, and it's been a decade old. Actually, this year, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. I'm hugely delighted to be here at Wolf Summit. This is my first time at Wolf Summit, but it is not my first time in this beautiful building, and you won't probably imagine that I was here, the only time that I've been here was in 1997, which is 26 years ago. Probably most of you weren't even around. but I hope that you enjoy this place as much as I do. I hope also that you are ready to learn, to share, and to mingle here while being at Wolf Summit. I am definitely ready, and show us that you are not asleep, because I cannot see you here. So at least let me hear you that you are not asleep and that you're going to listen to what I have to say. So I can see that some of you are still asleep. So that coffee that the mayor actually mentioned probably makes sense. All right, so let me look at the topic of our today's presentation. I am going to talk about sustainability a little bit, and the title of my presentation is Think Sustainably from the Start Up. When I was actually founding Emerging Europe, and this was in the summer of 2013, nobody knew about sustainable development goals. Nobody knew about ESG. There wasn't even anything like that. In fact, the word sustainable wasn't really used that often. And I have to be honest with you. When I think about myself from back then, I didn't know what sustainability was. And I think that nobody did. And in fact, especially for startups, it is something that is probably the last thing that you think about. And since the very beginning, we as an organization wanted to contribute to the social, the economic, and the democratic, I have to emphasize that because it's particularly important for us, growth of 23 countries in Central and Eastern Europe, and also in the Caucasus, because it's 23 countries. I am specifically looking at the word emerging because oftentimes that word is mistaken with the word developing. The region is not developing. The region is definitely emerging. And if you look up the word in the dictionary, you will see that the word emerging actually means moving away from something and becoming visible. And that's what this region is all about. It's moving away from its past, and it's becoming more visible. Now, we wanted to make sure that this social and economic and democratic growth of the region is also future-proof. So if you look at it a little bit, it actually reminds you of the word sustainable, because it is in a way sustainable. We wanted to build our vision of the region's future on two pillars. The first one was entrepreneurship, and this is where we are here right now, to celebrate entrepreneurship. The other one was innovation, and both of them, again, were supposed to be future-proof. Now, there were 10 areas which we identified as those that really needed to be addressed throughout our work in order to make sure that the region is actually going in the right direction. So the first, in fact, the 10 areas at the beginning were just vague areas, but when the UN eventually came up with the Sustainable Development Goals, we sort of borrowed the piece. As you can see, there is the first P is people. We borrowed it from the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we looked at 5 areas. The first one is people, then planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Now, if you look at people, there are 2 areas that we see this region needs to improve. One is education, and that education has to be, again, future-proof. And the other one is health and social care. One of the challenges actually is demographics, and the mayor was talking about it to some extent. That our part of the world is becoming less populated, so we need to address that issue. If we look at planet, we're talking about sustainable lifestyles, e-mobility, things like that. And we're talking about green energy. So probably quite a few startups here are related to that area, because if we think about sustainability, the first connection that comes to our minds is the environment, it's climate. Prosperity. In prosperity, we actually looked at two areas. The first area is people-first economy. So whatever type of government, whatever type of economy we want to implement, it has to put people first. And the other one was inclusive entrepreneurship. This is, I think, quite self-explanatory. Partnership is also very important, and for me, one area that I need to always emphasize is regional collaboration. I'm really glad when I was entering the room here, I heard quite a few different languages. Quite a few of them were from the region. So seeing you guys in one place and exchanging ideas, not only with Western countries, with Asian countries, but specifically within the region, that is something that makes me really happy. And the other area is policy making, because that is also something that we need to make sure works in the right direction. And briefly, peace. Yesterday I was watching TV and in a hotel, and I was listening to the news and hearing things about the lack of media freedom in several of our countries. That is something we definitely need to tackle in the region. And the last bit is, and again, the mayor mentioned Ukraine here. On the 28th of February last year, I was supposed to be in Kiev myself, which obviously didn't happen. So peacemaking, human rights, things like that are also included in our peace. Now, I already mentioned that, but I have a feeling that whenever we talk about sustainability, again, the first association that we have is related to climate and is related to the environment. In fact, when I was making this presentation and selecting some of the pictures for this presentation, when I put the word sustainability in the search engine, the pictures that popped up were all leaves, green leaves. They were showing nature, nothing about any other areas. But out of the 10 topics that I mentioned, I can clearly say that only 2 were related to the environment, green energy and sustainable lifestyles. All the others are actually related to a number of other issues that have to be tackled and are also part of sustainability. So I would like you to think about the 17 sustainable goals, because you will see that we're talking about inequalities, we're talking about maintaining peace, which obviously needs to be addressed at the moment. I would also like you to think about trade-offs, because if you look at sustainability, it's not always easy to tackle all the goals at the same time. Some will be only achieved at the cost of others. So you have to you have to think about it, reflect on that, and become actually a leader here to be able to choose which goal to achieve first. But I don't want to be theoretical here. I want to be a little bit more practical. And if I think about entrepreneurship, because that was one of the pillars that I mentioned at the beginning, I think that you don't really need to run a company to be an entrepreneur. You can work at an assembly line, you can be a teacher, and you can still be an entrepreneur. At the same time, running a company doesn't mean that you are an entrepreneur. Of course, it tells everybody else that you run a company, but you might not have the entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is absolutely essential to make sure you're running a successful business. What does entrepreneurial spirit really mean? It means that you don't feel really comfortable seeing things that, in your opinion, don't work. That's when I understood that I was an entrepreneur. When I saw inefficiencies, when I saw absurd regulations, and in my head, obviously not going too far with that, but in my head, I was trying to find a solution to solve this issue. So if we look at statistics, around the world there is around 600 million entrepreneurs. So that means that roughly 1 in 13 people, 1 person in 13 people is an entrepreneur. So if you think about it, it is actually a privilege to be an entrepreneur. And I think that you should congratulate yourselves if you have decided to embark on this entrepreneurial path and find solutions to solve the climate, to save the climate or the earth, or find solutions that will make our lives easier. I can say that from my perspective, if I look back at the 10 years, I can say that, yes, I've been working on my PhD for way too long, but in fact, by running a company, running a social enterprise that has a mission, has given me probably the same amount of knowledge and experience, especially knowledge, as writing or working or researching for a PhD. But I have to say that running or being an entrepreneur is also a responsibility. And why? Because you have the tools and you have the skills already, and you are simply obliged to use them to make improvements and make some impact. And myself, I am of Polish origin, and I have a feeling that I have the responsibility to also contribute to a better future for those 23 countries that we have decided to take under our wings, as Professor Günther Verheugen once said at our award ceremony in 2018. So what I would like to ask you is to think about it and see what kind of responsibility you also have. I mentioned 10 areas a moment ago, and I think there's plenty of stuff to be done in the region, even though it has achieved so much over the last 30 years. Now, when you look at companies, the primary motivation to run a company is to create, to serve, and to keep a customer. That's the most basic motivation. But if you look at the current circumstances, business is really about risk-taking. It's also about managing uncertainties and turbulence. And we as entrepreneurs and startup founders operate in an environment that is volatile, that is uncertain, that is complex and ambiguous. And we need to be prepared for anything that comes our way. You know, I had a very interesting discussion yesterday talking about whether I had expected the war taking place in our region, and I openly said I hadn't. So disruptive technologies, but also things like changing customer preferences and global events, just like the one that we are going through right now, or we went through just a couple of years ago, can all have a significant impact on our businesses. And we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for that change that can come anytime, because change is really inevitable. And if we are not prepared, we will be left behind. Now, I want to share one interesting statistic with you. If you look back 100 years ago, the mayor was talking about this complex, this building, being or celebrating more than 100 years. But if you look at the situation around the world 100 years ago, and the founders of American business, I'm talking about Andrew Carnegie, I'm talking about J.P. Morgan, I'm talking about Henry Ford, and how they were, when they were starting, the average cycle, business cycle of a company, of a business, was roughly 75 years, which means that you could actually come up with a solution or a service or a product and keep selling it for 75 years and reaping benefits from that and not being worried about anything else. That business cycle shrank at the end of the 80s and at the beginning of the 90s. Why did it shrink? Because of the dot-com bubble, because of the opening of China, because of the fall of the so-called Soviet Union. And suddenly, from 75 years, this became only 15. Did it stop then? Of course not. And now if we talk to companies, the average business cycle is about 6 years. Now, those whose business cycle is 6 years are actually quite lucky because they're usually monopolies that don't really have to think about a lot of stuff. But for small businesses and for startups specifically, it is between 12 months and 3 years. So again, those whose business cycle can last 3 years are particularly happy. So that means that you have to reinvent and innovate constantly in order to be able to maintain your business, really. Now, what I want to look at is the last 3 years. And I remember when we entered lockdown in 2020, we probably, those who were running businesses at the time, they probably remember that it was a challenging moment. And in fact, for some of them, for some companies, this meant dissolution already. Our approach as a company, as a social enterprise, was always, or has always been, quite unique, because when we were started, we thought we needed to have people on the ground, meaning all over Central and Eastern Europe, so people never touched in and touched out when they started work. Everyone was working remotely, pretty much always. I even remember a situation when we had guests from the Polish government in our office who said, well, we would like to actually see your office, because they were thinking, perhaps that's my explanation here, that we were some sort of dodgy business that didn't really have an office. So having an office meant that we really existed. So we didn't really, we did have an office to meet, but this office were really small. But what I want to say, we were also quite diverse, because our team was spread across, has been since the very beginning, spread across Central and Eastern Europe, from Georgia to Latvia to Bulgaria, Poland, obviously, and some of us are sitting in London. And what was really important, we have always been, since the very beginning, we were a cloud-based company, which means that all our operations have always been done in the cloud. That did have an impact when we actually went into lockdown, because that helped us survive, basically. But even for us, it wasn't that easy. We had to take a moment to reflect what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do going forward. And at the end of the day, we managed to pivot even more and become even more digital. So when I look back at the last 3 years, the COVID pandemic wasn't really a challenge for us. In fact, we see it now that it was an opportunity for our business to grow. So the reason why I'm saying this is that I would like you to look at sustainability. I mean, there's a lot of noise around sustainability, EU taxonomy, sustainability reporting, ESG, SDG, you can sometimes get lost with all the acronyms and everything. But what I would like you to look at sustainability, why I would like you to look at sustainability or how, would be through the lens of an opportunity. Because that will definitely transform the way you understand that, and it will lead to better results. So try to always ask yourself, how can I help? How can this help me improve the service or the product that I'm working on? How can I bring more value to our customers? And how can I do it without any negative, or as few as possible, negative consequences? A week ago, I had a chat with the founder of, we're talking about Ukraine, so I'll mention a Ukrainian startup, with the founder of Relief, one of the founders. The truth is that they had to leave Ukraine. They are now based in France, and to explain simply what they do is they produce paper. If you don't know that, they produce paper out of leaves that have fallen off trees. Now, I asked him, whether they consider themselves a sustainable startup, and he said, "Well, we produce paper from fallen leaves. So obviously, we are a sustainable startup." But then I said, "And what are your operations like? Do you apply those rules into your everyday operations?" And he said, "Well, we're starting to do that now. We have understood that this is also an opportunity. There have been quite a few byproducts that we had. Obviously, the main product is one. The byproducts, we don't want to waste it, so we are working on developing new ways of selling these products." And they again see this as an opportunity. So just to finalize, I want to talk a bit about sustainability journey. And I said that for us at Emerging Europe, it has been quite well, it hasn't definitely been a straight journey. So what I would like to leave you with today is to help you and maybe encourage you to embark on this sustainability journey. If you think about, if you think that others have it all figured out, it's not true. A lot of people, a lot of companies have absolutely no idea still what sustainability is and how it can add value to their business. In fact, last week I was in Prague and I hosted a session about sustainable investment. And my fellow panelists, there were, I think, 3 or 4 VC and PE managers, private equity and venture capital managers. And one of them said openly, if you asked me 2 years ago what ESG was, I would tell you, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, he still is trying to figure it out, but he has embarked on this journey to make sure that he understands what it is and how it can, how his fund, but also the startups that he is supporting can actually benefit from that. And since we're in Poland, I'll mention one more example. Last year, a couple of months after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we hosted the Future of Emerging Europe Summit in Brussels. And one of the speakers represented Żabka, which I'm sure you know here in Poland. It's the biggest grocery chain in Central and Eastern Europe. And their chief green officer said that as soon as they found out that Russia has invaded Ukraine, they stopped buying any services from Russia. It was a tough decision, but they did it. So that is the sustainable mindset that I would like to leave you with. So this is my message for you today. Try to embark on this journey and try to create this sustainable mindset for yourself. And if you want to get in touch in any way, please do so. I'm always eager to stay in touch with anyone that is interested in our region. Thank you so much.